These box cake mix hacks are gonna blow your mind. In fact, we're not exactly gonna follow the directions on the back of the box. I'm taking these to the next level. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 box cake mix recipes that will seriously knock your socks off. Okay y'all, let's get started. We all went crazy over the Southern Pecan Praline cake. To begin, in a large bowl, you're going to add in a butter pecan cake mix. And don't pay attention to the directions on the back of the box. We're going to add what we want here. Are you ready for this? 1 tub of coconut pecan frosting. Yes, right on into that cake mix. I'm also adding 4 eggs, 3/4 cup of vegetable oil, and the recipe called for 1 cup of water, but I always use milk. Or at least I try to, if I'm thinking straight. You're also going to add in 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Now you're going to mix this cake batter up until it's well combined. I've got a 9x13 baking dish and I sprayed that thing really good with nonstick spray. You're going to pour in that cake batter and y'all, this smelled heavenly. I wiggle that around just a little bit just to even it out. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for about 40 minutes. I had to take a little peek to check on it. It is just about done. So we're going to go ahead and make up a quick sauce on the stove top to pour on top. And I'm sure you could do this in the microwave. I just felt like following the directions at this time, at least on this day. In a small saucepan over medium heat, you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, and I was not wasting any of that, and 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. Now stir this until that butter is melted, it's heated through, and everything is well combined. Go ahead and remove it from the heat, and the cake is ready to come out of the oven. Now this is similar to a poke cake, but the sauce for this is very thin and I didn't want to be able to see a bunch of big holes in the top. So I just used a tiny kebab skewer and I poked lots and lots of tiny holes. Now if you want to, you can use something bigger like the back of a wooden spoon and it's not going to hurt a thing. Now I'm just pouring over that sauce. I guess you could call it a pecan butter sauce. The middle of that cake had rose quite a bit, so all that sauce wanted to run down towards the sides. So I just tried my best to work it back towards the middle. And that's all there is to it. You don't even have to wait to serve this. We ate it immediately. And of course we had to have it with a glass of milk. This was so good. It seriously tasted homemade and like you spent all day in the kitchen. And no one's gonna know it was from a box of cake mix. I'm still trying to figure out who thought to put frosting inside the cake batter. It's pretty genius if you ask me. I know you're gonna love these chocolate gooey cake mix brownies. In a large bowl, you're gonna add in a chocolate cake mix. I'm using a triple chocolate fudge, but any cake mix will do. And I have me a little helper for this one. It's my niece, Lila. This girl just loves to cook. After she adds in that cake mix, she's going to add 1 stick of melted butter. And I got ahead of myself here and just went straight into mixing, and it just did not seem right. I knew I was missing something. So now Lila's going to add in 1 egg. She's doing a great job. She's a professional at making chocolate sop, and in case you missed that video, I'll link it in the description box below. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. Okay, I think I have everything in here right now that's supposed to be in here so far. This is actually going to be the bottom layer, and this batter is very thick. So it's pretty much like a cookie dough consistency. We're making this in a 9x13, and I greased mine and lined it with parchment paper just so the brownies would be easier to lift out. And you can see the batter is super thick. You're just going to dump it right on in there and spread it out as evenly as you can get it. We learned a few tricks here. We started out by spreading it out with our hands, but it was still really hard to spread out. So I ended up grabbing a spoon and just using the back of that spoon to spread it out, and that worked much better. But if that doesn't work for you, you can always get a piece of plastic wrap or saran wrap and just lay that down on top and press it out that way. So these are pretty much a chocolate version of the butter cake bars, but the recipe is called cake mix brownies. Either way though, whatever you want to call it, they're delicious. We finally got that all pressed down into the bottom of that pan just like we wanted it, and now we're taking off that plastic wrap. See, it comes right off. I use that little trick when I make the bottom layer of a chocolate delight too. Works like a charm. Okay, now we're going to set that to the side. And in that same large mixing bowl, because we're not going to dirty up another one, I'm adding an 8-ounce block of softened cream cheese. And of course mine was not softened, so I did have to stick that in the microwave for just a few seconds. And now Lila's adding in 2 eggs. Hey, if y'all love sweets and sweet treats, I have a lot more to come, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And now you're going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla and half a cup or 1 stick of melted butter. And yes, we used butter earlier, so you'll need 2 sticks total for this recipe. One goes in that bottom layer and the other one goes in this cream cheese layer. Now just give that a really good mix. And if you're like me and didn't soften your cream cheese, you will have to work a little harder to get it all mixed up, but it'll work. Now I'm adding 1/4 cup of the Hershey's cocoa powder. And my little helper here is adding 2 1/4 cups of powdered sugar. And you can add it a little at a time. Sometimes it's easier to mix that way, but we just dumped it in all at one time. And make sure you scrape down the sides of the bowl just in case you missed anything on the bottom there. Now grab that bottom layer that we had set to the side and pour that cream cheese mixture on top. And you do want to try to spread it out evenly there. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for about 40 minutes. Now if you check it with a toothpick, the center will still be gooey, but that's okay. That's how we want it to be. You could serve these warm, or you could even serve them cold. And I wish I would have thought about it. I would have dusted them with a little powdered sugar. And that would really be just for looks though. And I bet these would be really good with some pecans or even walnuts in them. They're dense and fudgy, and they're delicious. When I saw this pumpkin honey bun cake, I knew I had to try it. In a large bowl, you're going to add in a box of butter golden, or you could even use yellow cake mix. And I'm sure vanilla would be fine too. And again, we're not going to follow the directions on the back of the box. I'm adding in half a cup of oil, along with half a cup of sour cream, and also 3/4 cup of the pumpkin puree. Make sure you don't use the pumpkin pie mix. And I just eyeballed this part. I'm adding 4 eggs and 2½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Or if you prefer, you can use the pumpkin pie spice. Now you're going to mix this with your electric mixer until it's very well combined. I've got a 9x13 baking dish here that I've sprayed with nonstick spray, and I'm spooning in about 2/3 of that batter there. After you get it in, just spread it out and make sure you completely cover the bottom of that dish. Now on top of that, I'm sprinkling over about 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar. And it does look like a lot. You may think you don't need it all, but trust me, just go ahead and add it. And the recipe called for 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts, but I didn't have any of those on hand, but I did have pecans. And I added a little extra, so I did more like 3/4 cup. And now you're going to take that batter that we had reserved and kind of spoon it out evenly over the top. You just don't want to disturb that brown sugar pecan layer underneath there. So try to get all that covered. And to spread it out, you can use the back of a spoon, or I like to use an offset spatula. But really anything you can find to get that middle layer covered up. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for 35 to 45 minutes. The top will be golden brown, and a toothpick inserted in the middle will come out clean. And you know a honey bun has to have a glaze, so I'm pushing that to the side, and I'm going to make a little mixture to pour on the top. In a small bowl, I added 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of milk, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm not sure why I didn't get my whisk out here, but oh well, I guess I didn't want to dirty anything else up. You just want to make sure you get that well combined. Now grab your cake and pour it right on top. Are y'all pumpkin lovers? I am. I love it. Now, but if you give me a choice between pumpkin and chocolate, now, I'm going to take chocolate any day. But this turned out amazing. I mean amazing. So, okay, let me tell you about this glaze here. It just seemed a little bit on the thin side to me. And we don't mind a little extra sweetness going on, so I mixed up another batch of that glaze, only I did only like a teaspoon of milk and then the teaspoon of vanilla with 1 cup of powdered sugar, and that ended up being perfect. So I'm glad I did that, because next time I'll do 2 cups of powdered sugar. Yes, I'm going to double the batch of glaze. 2 cups of powdered sugar and maybe a couple tablespoons of milk and then 2 teaspoons of vanilla. It turned out perfect, and I took some up to my dad and he loved it. He said it reminded him of a carrot cake. You'll have to let me know if you have a good carrot cake recipe. Now I'm making triple chocolate cake mix cookies. First, we're going to melt together some butter and chocolate in a large measuring cup here. I have 1 stick of butter. I did cut that into slices just so it would melt easier. And I'm adding in 1/3 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Microwave that in 20-second intervals until it's completely melted. And it may not look like it's melted, but give it a really good stir and it should be good. You just don't want to burn it. Now set that to the side. We'll need it in just a minute. In a large mixing bowl, I'm adding in 1 box of chocolate cake mix. And any chocolate cake mix will do. Now you can go ahead and pour in that butter and chocolate mixture. I'm also adding in 1 egg. Now you're going to mix that until it's combined, but just don't overmix it. Now we have just a little more chocolate to add in. I added 3/4 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And you can just fold those in. This will be a very thick batter, just like cookie dough. I've got a baking sheet that I've got lined with a silicone liner, or you could even use parchment paper. And I'm using a cookie scoop just to make sure I get them all the same size. And my cookie scoop is about a 2 tablespoon size. And I didn't think these would spread too much, so I went ahead and put quite a bit on that cookie sheet. And because they're not going to spread out a lot, I used the back of my measuring cup to slightly flatten the top. Now these go into the oven to bake at 325 for 8 to 10 minutes. Or whenever the top is no longer shiny, you just don't want to overbake these. I like them best when they're a little gooey in the center. Now I know they don't look the prettiest, so I melted some white chocolate and added in a little red food coloring. I used the gel food coloring. And when the cookies were cool, I just drizzled that over the top. And if you want to add sprinkles, be sure to do that before the chocolate sets, or else they won't want to stick. But this is the first time I've decorated these, and I think they come out pretty cute. I was going for the Christmas theme, and you could change it up to go with any holiday really, but they're so good. This pumpkin butterscotch bundt cake was a new family favorite for sure. In a large bowl, you're going to add in a box of yellow cake mix, and I would try to use the 15.25 ounce boxes, any of the Duncan Hines, but in case you didn't know, Betty Crocker changed their box cake mix to 13.25 ounce. And instead of making 24 cupcakes like a cake mix usually makes, they only make 21. Crazy. Okay, back to the recipe here. I added in a small box of the instant butterscotch pudding mix, along with 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 4 eggs, 1/4 cup of water, and 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. I'm also adding in 1 cup of the pure pumpkin puree. Now mix this until it's well combined. And you'll want to mix it for a good 2 minutes here. And I'm using a Bundt pan, and in case you're curious, mine's a 9.5 inch. And anytime I make a Bundt cake, I always grease it with Crisco and spray it with nonstick spray. And I have to use that Baker's Joy. It's the absolute best. Now that batter is super thick, but go ahead and spread it in as evenly as possible. And I like to swirl a knife around in there. I feel like that just helps to spread it out. And it also helps not to get it all over the inside of that pan there towards the top. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for 35 to 45 minutes. And this is my favorite, and at the same time, it's the scariest part of making a bundt cake. Because y'all, sometimes it comes out perfect, and sometimes only half the cake comes out. It did good for me on this day though. Perfect actually. And if you ever have a cake to fall apart on you, just go ahead and crumble that thing up and add in a little icing. Mix that up really good, roll them into balls, and dip them in chocolate. Those cake balls are the best. And this didn't call for a glaze, but I wanted to add a little something on top. And of course, I messed this part up. Since it was pumpkin butterscotch, I thought caramel would go good with that. So I mixed together some melted butter, powdered sugar, and that caramel sauce, and whisk it until it's very, very well combined. Oh, and here's where I might have messed up. I added just a little bit of milk. And you will have to work at this to get it to mix together well. But trust me, it's better to kind of work with it and stir it really good and give it a little time before you go adding too much liquid. Now grab that bundt cake and you're going to drizzle it right over the top. And at first it looked like it was going to be perfect. And then it pretty much just ran all off of the cake. So y'all know me, I ended up mixing up some more, minus the milk. And I think that did much better. But you could totally skip the glaze if you want, and you could just dust it with some powdered sugar. Make it a whole lot easier. I did drizzle on a little of that Hershey's caramel syrup, but I wish I had had some of the Hershey's ice cream topping caramel. That's a lot thicker and that would have done much better. This was so good. I think you'll love it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You may also like these. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one.